Hey, so I'm having to this is my first time actually having to redo something. I was getting ready to upload. Did my morning walk, and I was going at it, talking, telling my story, and was about to upload it this evening, and realized that it had stopped recording because I have my watch going, and my watch tells me how many, like, oh, you're at the mile mark or you're at the 2 mile mark. And I think when it did that, it stopped the recording and I didn't realize it. And so I'm pretty sure I walked and recorded for about a good 15 minutes or so, because I like to talk. So it went on for a minute. And I actually had something to talk about today that I thought was pretty good. And when I went to upload it, it was 2 videos, one that was 5 minutes, which was the beginning, and the other was like 3 seconds. And I was like, what the hell? So this is the first time me and my new, trying to post, and it didn't work, right? Like whatever technology. So I'm sitting out on the porch of my aunt's house before I go in here and cook some dinner for her and I on my last night before I head home. So I thought I would come out and just do a quickie post to kind of round off, because I'm a little frustrated that it didn't go through, because I was feeling some type of way this morning and I was super excited about it. Not excited about it, but I had been watching some TikToks or some Instagrams, and so I just had an opinion about something. So anyway, maybe this is good because it won't be like my long rambling that I always do, but it's still rambling because that's just what I do. So if you're watching this, you know that about me already. It is what it is. But the thing that has really been on my heart a lot has been Ryan Clark. And so I wrote an article on Ryan Clark, or an essay, or just, a post on Ryan Clark last night, because it just really bothered me. I've been in HR for over 2 decades. I'm moving away from it a little bit, not really, but in my mind I am. And how the whole thing went down just rubbed me the wrong way, right? I get the whole thing, businesses, I hope it's not too loud for you guys. Businesses lay people off, businesses terminate people, like all of that, like I get it. And so I wasn't so much bothered by that, but I was really bothered about how they did it in the middle of the broadcast, and so I'd written about it, and then I saw a couple of posts, because he has been talking about it on Pivot, on his podcast. He's been talking about it, and so it was really great to have the opportunity to hear directly from him what happened, and how he thought he ended up there, which I thought was really a perspective that you often don't get. And so the thing that I love about him, even because I follow him, his personal page, and I follow him on Pivot, is that he's always super honest and super genuine, right? And so he choked up in a couple of different places, but anyway, he was telling the story about what happened and why he thought it happened. And a couple of things stuck out to me, which is, one, I still was pretty unhappy as an HR professional about the fact that they did this mid the podcast, and how really the thought behind it, or the reason behind it that they're giving, is because that a news outlet had got wind of the fact that they were going to terminate him, and they didn't want him to find out in social media, or however, right? Social media, or however they thought he was going to find out. And so that's why they did it, per se. Even though they were doing layoffs on that Tuesday, they terminated on that Monday. You guys probably should know all this if you follow any of it. And so he shared the fact that, he was at break. I'm not sure if he was at break, or somewhere along that they told him to call his boss. Somebody told him, hey, call your boss. And so during this break, he called his boss and was kind of like, hey, what's up? And in that, his boss told him, in that call that he had, that they were letting him go. But he was in the middle of a show, right? And so there was, the first couple of posts that came out before he spoke himself said that he made the decision not to go back on air And he was very clear that he said no, that he asked, should he go back on air? And he was told no. And so he didn't. And, you know, as an HR professional, I don't know who made the decision. I don't know whether it was his boss. I don't know if it was his boss's boss. I don't know if it was HR. I don't know who it was. But I just feel like as an HR professional, one of the things that we do is try to make sure, or we should, let me not say that we do, we should try to make sure that things are done integral. We should do things, especially in terminating a person or laying them off, that it's done with the utmost respect and regard for humanity, and because it's a shitty thing, right? Like taking away a person's job is one of the worst things that you can do aside of death and divorce, right? And so it's already so emotional and just such a shitty thing to do, that doing it with a sense of care is so important and just should be considered. And I feel like the way they did it was shitty. And maybe it's that industry, because I've worked in a lot of industries, but I've never worked in television. But it was just shitty. But so I wrote a post on that, but I ended up taking it down because after I saw his actual post where he gave his talk about it, I decided to take it down because I like, when I write something or post something, I like it to be factual. And so it was not as factual as I wanted it to be, because, you know, once I heard him tell his story, it was similar but different, and I don't like similar but different. I like it to be factual, and I love that I got to hear from him. But one of the things that he said, which that I talked about this morning when I was walking, was he was telling this story about how something happened. It seemed like it might have been easily a year or more ago, that he felt like was a pivotal turning point in how he was viewed at the network, and that it was somewhat of the beginning of kind of the erosion of him being there, and how he, in some respects, always felt like there was something grinding him behind, but he just was hopeful, which I think is what all employees are. Like, you know, especially if you're hardworking, you're doing good work, and you show up and you're giving it 150%, and you show up, and half of the reason they you think that people hired you is because they like who you are, they like what you stand for. You show up every day, you do the thing, and you are who you said you were, right? And I don't really recall, nor do I really care to get into the details of what it was that happened, but it was something that happened, and it must have involved a couple of different people. But he referenced the fact that, you know, a lot of the people in this particular incident, I believe how he stated it, you know, either apologized or backtracked or something, and he didn't. And he kind of felt like that was the beginning. And, you know, he had a couple of different posts, because of, you know, that was broken up about talking to the guys on Pivot with him about, you know, they were asking questions about what he doing any different and all the different things. And, you know, it was just heartbreaking, because as a person that's in HR, like I've not seen what he went through, but I've seen a version of it. I've seen how an employee can do something that rubs somebody in authority the wrong way, and how that almost becomes the fork in the road that eventually kind of sets the stage for that person to be, you know, discounted, the scapegoat, you know, not so much the problem child, but there's just a thing, right? Like whatever the opinion is of them has changed by that person or persons. And they're just, it's like, you know, stacking blocks, right? They're just stacking blocks. And so any little thing just is another block on the tower that will eventually fall, because it's just, you know, they're just waiting for the right opportunity, because they've decided now, for whatever reason, that you are just, you know, you're not a keeper. And sometimes it's not anything major, it's just some bullshit, right? And it's typically, and the things that they're stacking, you know, are just little, and it's the things, I think, that we as employees, as people, we see, but we ignore, because there's that real part of you that wants to believe that the hard work and showing up every day and giving 150% and being a team player and all the things are doing what they're supposed to do. And it's not about, having favor with the, with the bosses or having favor with the higher ups. It's about, I show up every day and I do the job that you pay me to do, and I do it really well, and I do it to the best of my ability. And so, yes, we may have had some disagreements, or yes, I may not have yielded because of whatever the situation was. It was important to me. And so although I'm an employee, I'm an individual, and I have the right to have an opinion on something, right? I have the right to say, I disagree, or I support this, and you may not support this, but that's the whole point. It's like, we all are individuals. We're all different. We all have different histories. And so I may support something that you don't support. And I shouldn't have to, as an employee, change my belief system or not stand for something I believe in because my boss doesn't believe in that, or because the higher ups don't believe in that. But I guess that's the world we kind of live in a weird way. And the stuff that I've dealt with wasn't that deep, right? I've just had people that rubbed leaders the wrong way because of things that they just did. Like, I real quick, I'm at 11 minutes, but I remember working, this was a job many, many years ago, and one of the top salespeople, he was a customer service person. And he was by far like one of the top salespeople. He was better than the salespeople, actually. And he was a customer service guy, but he was phenomenal. Great relationships. Customers loved him. And he sold a lot of shit, right? He sold a lot of shit. And he had been with the organization for something like 15 years. And it was interesting because he probably had been, I don't know, they probably tried to poach him before, but he wasn't interested. But this time around, a competitor came to poach him, and they offered him an astronomical salary. Like, significant. Like, it was no joke. And so it was life-changing money for him. And so he came and said, look, like, I've been here for 15 years, and I don't want to leave, and I don't really want to play games with you. However, I got offered my same job in the same industry by a competitor, but it was something like a 40%, something between a 40 or 50% increase, salary increase. It was huge, right? Now, the crazy thing was he was worth it, and he was worth it because he was good, he was hardworking, he had great connections, and for all intents and purposes, he was probably underpaid, if I remember correctly, because that's the hard part also, which I haven't got into. But when you work somewhere for a very long time, you likely end up being underpaid or under market, because the 5%, the 3 to 5% increases that you get year over year typically don't keep up with the pace of how the job may change in the industry, right? Or change, from the market perspective. And so it's not uncommon for someone, especially long tenured people who've been there 10 plus years, you look back and you look at their comp, and it's significantly less than what if you hired that person off the street that you would have to pay. So when he asked for it, like, he wasn't like, it was going to be a huge increase for him, but one, he was worth the increase, and two, he was under market. So wasn't that big of a deal. So I went to the president and I said, hey, this is what happened. And we have a decision to make, because this is what he's being offered. And so either we match it, or we get really freaking close to it, or we do better. And the president at the time was pissed. Like, he was like pissed. So long story short, we ended up matching it, and he stayed. But I never forget that, and he sent this really great note to the president thanking him so much and saying that, he felt like that was his home, and he'd been there for all these years, and his whole, goal was to be there till he stopped working, and blah, 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 blah. Really great. And the president says to me, he's dead to me. He's dead to me. And at the first opportunity, I want him out. And now this was all because he felt some type of way about this man coming and saying, hey, I got poached. He was, for whatever reason, it just rubbed him the wrong way. He's pissed off about it. He felt like he was put in a corner, that he had to, because he did, because it was either give him the money or he's going to go to a competitor. And he's probably going to cause some problems for us because he was very well liked. He knew the business. He had a great following from customers. So was it likely that some customers were going to follow him? Absolutely. And so he didn't intend to put our back up against the wall, but his actions did, right? And wasn't mad at him for it. I understood it, but the president was pissed, and he did. He was like, he's dead to me, and at the first opportunity, I want him out. Now, me being me, and me being the HR that I feel like I have to be, and what's right for me, I said to him, yeah, we're not doing that. we're not, he's been loyal, he's hardworking, and you can't be mad. I basically was like, you can't be mad at him because he got an opportunity, because you would do it. You would, someone offered you damn near double your salary, you would either take it and leave, or you would try to get more money. Like, you would do it. You would do the same shit. So why would you be mad that he did it, And so I was like, we're not doing that. We're not firing him. We're not, he can be dead to you, but we're not firing him. We're not creating an uncomfortable position, situation for him. Like, get over it. And sadly enough, I don't know if anybody ever said that for Ryan Clark. So I just feel like, it's shitty. And that's a little bit behind the green curtain, that people don't actually know that already. The other thing that I'm going to spew really quickly, and damn, it's already 16 minutes, is he made a comment about the fact that he had kind of, he was authentically himself, but he had pulled back. He'd pull back a little bit, trying to be accepted, trying to fit into the box that they wanted him to be in. And, I write a lot on my articles and essays on Substack, and just in general about the cost of what we do, whatever that is, or who you are, and when you fight to be authentically you, and about a lot about fitting in, and about being accepted, being a part of a tribe. And one of the things that it kind of broke my heart, because he said, I pull back, I tried really hard to fit in, and he didn't give up, I don't believe, or didn't get that completely, that he gave up a lot of himself to fit into the mold that they wanted him to fit in, but he did give up something. And not enough, I think, that it made him not be proud of what he was doing or who he was, because he talked a lot about the fact that, if he had to do it again, he would do it again, because he felt like he made a lot of people proud, and that was important to him. But I do think it cost him something, which it cost most of us something. But I think it also, signals that something that I learned kind of early in my career, which is you can't give up a lot, because the funny thing is, when you're in an environment, and this to me is any relationship, friends, romantic, most certainly work, anything. When you're in a situation where you're asked to give up something about who you are, especially if it's a core belief of who you are, and you do it in order to fit in or to please someone else, the hardest part about that is 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. And then you walk away feeling like you gave something of yourself, you gave up something of yourself to fit in the box, to do the thing, to be accepted, to be loved, to be liked, to be whatever. And they still didn't accept you. They still didn't accept you. They still didn't like you. They still didn't love you. But yet you gave up something. You gave up a piece of you. You gave up, and any piece to me nowadays is too much. And, I used to tell people when I was in corporate America, if I'm going to die on a sword, I'm going to die on my own sword. And I did. I typically did. And that made it bearable, because I watched so many people twist themselves into fucking knots to get favor with a boss, or to get favor with a team, or to be a part of a clique. And they still got railed. They still talk shit about him behind their backs. They still never really accepted him. They still, talked shit about him. They still gave him all the shitty jobs and still ran him around like a bunch of freaking idiots. And so they gave so much, and you still, because human nature is, if you're in, you're just in, and you don't really have to work that hard to get in. You're just in. And so I learned pretty early on in my career that I was like, if I'm gonna, and those same people, like, they do all the things, they jump through all the hoops, they change ways about them, they do all the things because they wanted to be that person for their boss, for the team, whatever. And they still got let go, or they still got laid off, or they still, they were still the one that got fired, or whatever the case is. And I watched that a lot of my career in my younger corporate life, and I was like, I'm not doing that, right? I am who I am, and I'm gonna stand on that. And because at the end of the day, if they want me out, they want me out. If they're gonna fire me, they're gonna fire me. If they're gonna lay me off, they're gonna lay me off. Whatever, they're gonna do it. And so, at least if they're gonna do it, I'm gonna walk away knowing, singing Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. Not in a bad way. Like, I'm not gonna be defiant. I'm not, I'm not picking just to pick. I'm not being difficult just for the sake of being difficult. But I am gonna stand for what I stand for. I'm gonna believe in what I believe in, and I'm gonna be the person that I say that I am to myself. And so if that, if they walk me out the door because of that, I'm okay, because we already give so much, and I don't want to give pieces of myself for people that if you're asking me to give those pieces, I'm not the right person anyway. And so I love Ryan Clark. I've been a big fan of his, and I have no doubt that he will be fine, because he, God looks out for people. And there was another lady that did a post on the fact that she was pretty sure. She was like, I don't know this for a fact, but she was like, one, I think he's going to be fine. I think most people think that, because he's got his own things going on, and he's so well respected, right? She was like, I'm pretty sure, he's so calm about it all, which I think is great. And she said, but he probably asked God for room or expansion. She goes, I really believe that him being exited out of ESPN was an answer to a prayer. And maybe the answer, or the how it happened, the how wasn't how he envisioned it or how he wanted it, but it was certainly an answer to a prayer. And that there are greater things ahead for him. And I felt that because, when I left my last employer, I wrote an essay on the fact that it was messy. It was really messy. But when I look back at it, maybe like him, it was messy for a reason. And it was messy because I needed to get out. And I wasn't going to do it because I was too committed, and I was too worried about the employees, and I was too stupid to walk away when I probably should have. And so, God created a situation where I walked away, and it was messy, and there was hurt feelings, and there was anger, and there was all the things, right? But when I look back at it, it needed to be messy, because when I walked away, I was able to close that door and not look back. And that was what I needed to get to the next place, to get where I'm going. I needed to walk away, and I needed to close that door, and I needed it to be closed and sealed, and I needed to be okay with it. And sometimes a little bit of messiness makes you okay with it. Sometimes if it's too nice, then you're always wondering if I shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe if I would have done something different, maybe. But if it's a little messy, like with him, you can close that door definitively. You can close that door and you're like, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's lights out. It's amber. It's, it's lights, camera, action. It's shut it down. It's a wrap. It's done. It's over. That chapter is closed. And you can move on without ever having to look back over your shoulder, wondering, could I have done something different? Should I have done something different? So sometimes it needs to be messy, and sometimes it needs to be freaking definitive, and sometimes it just needs to be shut the hell down. And so he'll be okay, just like I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay. I'm not pretty sure, I know I'm going to be okay because God said so. And so I'm standing on business with what God said. But anyway, I had to redo this again. Hope I don't have to do this much. And I hope everybody has a nice night. It's beautiful here. I'm sitting on the porch, as you can see, in some summer gear and watching the sun go down. And so I hope everybody's had a great weekend and getting ready for the week. Take care.